Saiyan Rose Goku Black.
For a very long time, two women had a great friendship. Despite belonging to different universes, they met in an extreme situation because it was in a war that they almost managed to win and peace would come. They were Takamiya Mio, a spirit, a deity with abilities that would make anyone tremble. She came from a different universe, but because the multiversal wall was destroyed for a few minutes, she moved to this corner of the multiverse out of mere curiosity. On the other hand, we have Diana, a human who challenged a god of destruction and managed to land a blow, impressing the god and his master, which over time would lead her to become an aspiring goddess of destruction of Universe 7 and then rule that universe. Time distanced these two friends. After the war, Mio looked for ways to become stronger, because the most powerful enemy in existence was sealed with the power of her good counterpart in exchange for losing most of her power, and sooner or later she would be released. Diana, in Mio's absence, met the destroyer god of Universe 6, and over time they had two children, a boy named Kampa who would be identical to his father and a girl named Mio, identical to her mother. Time would separate this family, as Mio would suffer abuse from her father and brother, as she had great combat skills and overshadowed her brother Kampa. When Diana found out that she was being mistreated as a child, she thoughtlessly eliminated the father of her children from existence and expelled Kampa to Universe 6, where over time he would become the god of destruction and Mio would supplant her mother in Universe 7, as she would have to occupy a much higher position as supreme goddess. In this new role, Diana had to oversee all the timelines of the 12 universes with the help of her royal guard, but it would still be too much work for everyone, so they divided the task and created a universe for each of them to serve as a base of operations. During this journey, Diana and Mio would reunite, and over time, their feelings for each would come to light, and the fruit of that love would eventually produce a baby girl. Kurumi. The girl was a blessing to them, and with this the two brought the spirit world and planet Earth from the universe Mio came from to the universe created by Diana, and there the three lived. But 2 cloths later she would be blessed by another girl whom they named Toka. This event made that entire universe tremble for a few seconds due to the enormous power of the girl. The following days Diana would begin to come later or no longer usually come because the entire multiverse would be in chaos again. Despite the fact that they did their job, there was more and more chaos due to the demons who shook the timelines. Then 2 heavyweights would appear and Diana would say goodbye to Mio and her daughters, because she could lose her life against Lucifer and Lilith, the 2 most powerful demon ladies who had a power similar to hers. This goodbye caused Kurumi to suffer an attack of despair at the possibility of losing her mother and caused her to awaken her spirit powers. Her angel, Zafkiel, would give her the ability to manipulate time at will. Mio would spend a few days taking care of Toka and training Kurumi, but when Diana did not return she became worried and made a decision. She went to planet Earth, to the only place where she knew she would be welcomed, the Takamiya residence, where a high school girl named Mana lived, who years ago had lost her older brother Shinji, and it was Mio who helped her move on. Mio would explain the situation to Mana and she would agree to take care of her nephews because she considered the older spirit as her sister, and so Mio left in search of Diana. Mana wouldn't have any money problems, since her parents work abroad and earn quite a lot, and they usually came when work allowed, which isn't very often. Days passed, turning into weeks, and then months. Mana thought the worst, but she had to move forward and take care of the girls. Time passed. Kurumi had sworn to protect Mana and especially her younger sister Toka, but above all, to become stronger and one day avenge her mothers by finishing off those Lucifer and Lilith. The girls had grown up and were now in high school. Toka lived her entire life without really knowing her divine origins, so she behaved like a normal human and made several friends. Kurumi, on the other hand, became very overprotective of both Mana and Toka, and thanks to her abilities that she would learn to use, she sent clones of herself to watch over her family and in search of information all over the world, in addition to always training in her free time when she was not with her only friend, who at the same time would be her best friend, Sawa Yamauchi. But Kurumi's life would change in her final year of high school. There, she would meet someone unlike any other. A boy would move to that place, possessing an exaggeratedly high energy level unlike humans. He rivaled Toka's and shared the same essence as both of them. She would immediately understand that he was another deity, named Son Goku. This would be the beginning of a long road that Kurumi will have to travel, to find happiness by saving them all, after all only she can do it. It was a Friday morning, with pleasant weather. Kurumi was combing her hair in her room, while a few inches away from her was Sawa putting on her high school uniform. She had stayed over because she had agreed to help Kurumi study because an exam was coming up. After putting on the skirt, she would watch for a few moments as her best friend arranged her hair. "What do you think? Should I put my hair up or wear it down today?" Kurumi would ask doubtfully. "Sawa, Kurumi-san will look cute with any hairstyle," she would say with a small smile and then added, "But if I had to choose, I liked how you wore it in high school, remember?" "So, I'll go back to combing my hair like that," he would reply with a smile. Then they would go down to breakfast, and they would find Toka who was very happily eating kinako bread, which is what she likes most in the whole world. "Good morning Toka-san," Sawa would greet friendly as she took a seat in front of the younger girl. "WL, yum, let's give, yum, s," he would greet while eating. "Kurumi, Toka, finish eating before you talk," the scolding thing that would make her younger sister feel ashamed. "I'm sorry," Toka would apologize after finishing her bread. "I won't do it again," she would finish with her head down and a small pout. Kurumi would let out a small sigh. Out of the corner of her eye she looked at the time on television. Since her sister was watching the news, or at least that's what she supposed, "There's still time," she would say while carrying some cups of coffee for her and Sawa. Before taking a seat, she would caress Toka's hair while saying, "I don't want you to think I'm bad, but if you do those things people will talk bad about you. You know I love you little sister," she would finish with a very tender tone of voice and give her a loving kiss on the forehead. The action would make Toka smile and also grieve her a little. Despite her age she was very innocent and her older sister was always educating her for her own good, since she didn't want to have problems again like a few years ago in high school. When some girls made fun of Toka and ended up with the group of girls in the hospital courtesy of Kurumi. Sawa had tenderly observed that small moment between sisters, aware of what they both went through, omitting the fact that they are deities. What she knows is that the girl's father abandoned them when Toka was born and their mother died in an accident. A lie that Kurumi had to tell her, because although she considered telling him where they came from, she would have many doubts about how he would react, so for the moment she will leave it as it is. "Fufufu, sometimes I think about making a Yuri Dojinshi between you two because you are so close," Sawa would joke with a mischievous giggle. Kurumi would settle in next to her sister to drink her coffee and eat something before heading off to high school. "Honestly, if Toka weren't my blood sister, I'd go out with her," she would respond calmly, leaving the two girls stunned. Toka would turn red as a tomato, "Sister." She would whisper, not knowing what else to say. "Kurumi, Fufu, it was just a joke," she would try to apologize to her sister along with Sawa since she started the joke and the black-haired girl continued it. The minutes would pass, and they would have to leave for high school. Along the way, Toka would meet some friends and classmates, Tabichi Origami, Mukuro Hashimiya, and Kazumachi Yamai. For the rest of the way, Sawa and Kurumi were talking about the trip that the brunette would have to make to America with her parents to visit some relatives. During the conversation, Kurumi would notice that something would fly through the skies at high speed. Son Goku, she would think upon feeling his ki. How can he be so reckless? They might see him and cause a big commotion. I'll have to talk to that boy, she would say, the last thing, shaking her head. Later, exactly at lunchtime, Kurumi would leave the bathroom and meet up with Sawa to go to lunch together. Meanwhile, another Kurumi would move through the shadows until she reached the rooftop where Goku was about to eat a grand feast prepared by his mother, with one of her clones accompanying Sawa. "Let's eat," he would exclaim happily, and just at that moment, he would realize that he was not alone. When he looked up, he would see a girl whom he would recognize as his classmate. "Goku-san, right? I apologize for interrupting your lunch," Kurumi would say, making an apology sign. Don't worry, I haven't started yet, Edo. I think your name was Kurumi, right? She would ask with curiosity, since she hadn't learned everyone's name yet. Kurumi, you're right, I'm sorry to be so direct, but I'll get to the point. Goku-san, why did you fly here? Aren't you worried that others might find out that you can do that? She would ask with doubt. Goku, so you saw me, and you're not surprised, maybe because you can do it too? Hee, yes, but I rarely do it. Well, anyway, I just came to suggest that you be more careful so you don't get into trouble, Kurumi would say, turning around to leave. Goku, wait. He would exclaim, standing up, gaining the attention of his partner. You can feel my energy, so you are also a deity? He would ask with great curiosity, since he could not imagine any other reason. Kurumi, you're right, Goku-san, although I try not to stand out, I only care about my family. Having said that, I will leave with my friend Sawa, if you excuse me, she would say, opening the door to leave. Goku, hey, now I have a lot of questions. You're the first one I've met who's just like me. Do you think we could go out and talk someday? He would ask hopefully. Are you referring to a date, Goku-san? Kurumi would ask with a small blush, since he was the first man who had asked her out. Before Goku could say anything, she would answer, okay, do you have a cell phone? She would ask, turning around. The young man would nod and take his cell phone out of his pocket, and they would exchange numbers. Later, we'll agree on a day and time. Does that sound okay to you, Goku-san? Of course, thank you very much, Kurumi. She would exclaim with a smile. So each one would continue with their own thing. Goku would enjoy his lunch and Kurumi would look for the opportunity to exchange places with her clone, although of course, she did not waste the opportunity to observe her sister, who was having lunch with her friends in the high school courtyard under the shade. She would also notice that there were more girls she knew, but she did not see today in the course in which they came. Maybe they arrived late, she thought. The rest of the day passed in a flash. After leaving, Sawa had to head home, which was opposite Kurumi's, so the sisters left together and stopped at a store to pick up some things to make dinner, since Mana would be late due to work. Kurumi was cooking miso soup, while texting with Goku, since they had agreed to meet on Sunday, but they still continued talking because he was also cooking, since his mother would be home from work and always waits for her with dinner. Toka for her part was chatting with her friends in a group they had made, where her friends who were in the first year of high school would also be, and one of them was going to the second year. They were Natsumi, Yoshino, Mayuri, Kotori, Nia, and Miku. The latter attends the same year as Toka, but being an idol she rarely attends high school due to her busy schedule, and Nia attends the second year, being 1 year older than Toka. Minutes later, Mana arrived, tired from studying and work, but now she could relax a little and have dinner with her family. Everything was so happy for them, despite the difficult times they'd endured years ago, and now happiness seemed just around the corner. Sunday had arrived. At this moment Kurumi was getting ready for her date with Son Goku, while Toka was combing her hair. Both were talking about the date. Well, the younger one seemed to be much more excited than Kurumi herself, who didn't seem happy, at least on the outside, since inside she was very nervous. But she couldn't let her little sister see her that way, because she had created an image of a strong older sister who didn't show any signs of being downcast. Although there were times when Kurumi would disappear and hide somewhere in the city to let out repressed feelings. So where are they going to meet? Toka would ask with a huge smile. Kurumi, we'll meet at the plaza next to the train station. Will you be okay alone for a few hours? I can cancel and stay here with you, she suggested, somewhat worried about her sister. Toka would shake her head. Okay, go to your date, maybe I'll go out to eat with Itsuki. It's been a while since we last saw each other, and she agreed to confirm with me before noon, she would answer with total joy of seeing an old friend. Kurumi, Itsuki-san. Wow, you're still in touch with her, you should invite her and her sisters to eat sometime. What a shame their father changed them to another high school, she would say with sadness, because they had barely managed to share 2 years in high school, and they used to go out often with Sawa and some of Toka's older friends. Since the younger ones weren't allowed by their parents, as was the case with Yoshino, Kotori, and Mayuri. Oh, what a great idea. I'll let him know today and see what Itsuki says, she exclaimed happily as she finished combing her sister's hair. Kurumi thanked her sister and looked in the mirror and saw the hair ornament her sister had given her, and that was why she wanted to use it on this occasion. "You look very beautiful, sister," Toka would exclaim, which made Kurumi blush a little at the compliment, because those things coming from the youngest made her blush and be very happy. After all, Toka was Kurumi's pride. Minutes later, Goku would call Kurumi to let her know he was about to leave, so the spirit said goodbye to her little sister and left. After the trip she would meet Son Goku, who would be stunned by the girl's beauty, even saying the words, "You are beautiful," which made Kurumi blush a lot since she was very shy on this occasion. So Goku suggested going somewhere to eat so they could talk. On the way to a restaurant, they both seemed nervous. Despite the fact that this date was meant to be a conversation between deities, they were both captivated by each other. Once at the restaurant, they would both order something to eat, and while they waited, they would start chatting. "So, are you from here? You know, this planet?" Goku would ask, his voice so that the people around him wouldn't hear. Kurumi, "Nope, I come from a place where there were more like me, well, something like that. Since I am the result of the love between a goddess and a spirit," she would say the latter without much care, because she would notice that there were not as many people as the young man in front of her believed. Goku would be shocked, he was sure he had heard correctly, and that Kurumi had two mothers, something difficult to imagine, but if she said it, it must be so. "So, if I remember correctly, there is another girl with an energy familiar to yours, could she be related to you?" The spirit would smile and nod, "That's right, my little sister Toka, although she doesn't know about our origin and I prefer that it stay that way to keep her safe and be happy like a normal girl, until the time comes to tell her the truth." Goku would remain silent for a few seconds, because he had noticed how the girl's face had changed when she named her sister. "Kurumi, and you come from another place, right?" Goku, "That's right, from the planet Vegeta, but I was exiled for not having fighting power and I came to this planet with my mother." The questions and answers went back and forth, soon the order would arrive from both, where they continued getting to know each other, how Goku usually trains with Capsule Corporation technology and how he masters Ki, which greatly increases his strength when fighting. For Kurumi's part, she revealed that she also usually trains her physique but in secret since she also masters Ki among other things. Meanwhile, they realized they had a lot in common, they would do anything to protect their family. They are both deities from another world. They master Ki and also know martial arts, although for the spirit, it's somewhat secondary. Above all, they both protect the world from threats. Last week, for example, Goku defeated an intergalactic being that wanted to invade the planet, while Kurumi prevented the owner of a technology company from summoning a being from another dimension. After eating, they would both go for a walk, now talking about other things, such as everyday life, where each would learn that, for example, Goku's mother, Jine, works at Capsule Corporation and that Kurumi's aunt/guardian, Mana, works for the government in a technology industry. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Toka was at an Akihabara restaurant with an old friend named Itsuki, with whom they were already ordering their 7th plate of food because they both had a big appetite, although Toka hides it from her sister and only Mana knows. Back on Goku and Kurumi's date, everything was going well between them until an evil presence that they both felt made them go to where it came from. Upon arrival, they were surprised to see demons attacking people in broad daylight, so Goku defeated them all in the blink of an eye, to Kurumi's surprise, but this would cause the boss of those demons to make an appearance. A demon calling himself Asmodeus would be filled with rage since he had been ordered to conquer that world just a few minutes ago. Goku would attack swiftly, taking the demon to a more remote place where Kurumi would follow them. There both would finish him off, who before dying would warn them that they were preparing the awakening of their goddess, something that caused bad feelings in both heroes, especially Kurumi. A few days later, the date ended, and they agreed to go out again another day. That same night, Kurumi had to share all the details with her sister and Sawa over the phone, while Goku had to share them with his mother and his friend Bulma. Days later somewhere, there were 7 figures sitting around a table where they were talking, when a minor demon apologized for interrupting them and gave the news that Asmodeus had not appeared for several days since he went to planet Earth in the last universe to be created. At that, a figure stood up before hearing the scoldings of 2 of the 7 people there, who act as leaders. "I'll take care of it, she can't find out that something like this happened," the woman would warn as she left. A blonde woman with an intimidating aura would direct her gaze towards another of those present. "Satan, accompany Beelzebub. If someone is capable of putting up a fight, we must finish him off now before she breaks free." At this, a white-haired woman stood up and left. "Lucifer, you must remain calm. Years ago we finished off the only ones who could give us problems. It's just a matter of her coming back to us," a dark-haired woman would say while smiling. The one called Lucifer would look at the woman next to her and let out a sigh. "You're right, Lilith, but those 2 have already left. Well, I doubt they'll take long," she would finish with a huge sinister smile, while looking at all her companions who made up the greatest threat at this moment for all the universes. The 7 Great Demons. In high school, there would be normal days like any other, boring classes with little excitement, but during recess, Goku and Kurumi would start spending more time together where they talked and got to know each other more and more. The Scion would find out that Kurumi had formed a plan a long time ago so that her family wouldn't be involved in dangers if they were discovered in her duties as a vigilante, so she adopted the surname Tokisaki and suggested to Mana that she convince Toka to do the same, and thus the lesser spirit adopted the surname Yatagami. As the days went by, the Scion would meet Kurumi's famous younger sister, Toka, with whom he would quickly form a friendship and be amazed by how radiant that girl is. He would also meet the younger girl's friends, both those who attend high school and those who are in middle school. Toka felt very happy for her older sister, although Sawa would feel a little jealous since she would start to spend a little less time with her best friend. On the other hand, Mana was working on a project with a coworker named Ellen, which, if successful, would bring a great revolution to the world. She didn't care much about that aspect, since it was all her idea, and as the opportunity to make it a reality presented itself, she would take advantage of it in order to take care of her nieces. A week after everything seemed perfect, problems would arise. Goku and Kurumi quickly realized 2 unpleasant presences that didn't even give them time to act, as in the blink of an eye the high school was attacked. The spirit of time would quickly recover and go in search of her sister, whom she would find unconscious under some rubble for having protected one of her friends with her body. Without thinking too much, Kurumi would make her clones appear and rescue all the students, and thanks to using her spirit power, she now wore an astral dress and had a different look, which would make them not recognize her. On the other hand, Goku had gone directly towards those 2 presences, who were in the sky waiting for him to appear. "Bravo!" Beelzebub would say, applauding the Scion. "You were the first to arrive, son Goku," he would finish with a smile, which would surprise the Scion. "How do you know my name?" The young Scion would demand an answer. "We have been observing you and also Tokisaki Kurumi and Yatagami Toka. You 3 have an absurd amount of energy for being humans," Satan would say analytically. "Goku, and what are you doing on this planet?" He demanded to know in a serious tone. The demon ladies looked at each other for a few seconds and laughed. "We have come to eliminate them so that they are not a problem in the future, so, I the great Beelzebub will finish you off. Feel honored," he would say, the latter winking at him, and in the blink of an eye he appeared in front of the Scion, who seconds later would feel a pain in his abdomen. When he lowered his gaze he would notice that the demon had pierced him with her arm. Goku wouldn't give up on something like that, so he would grab Beelzebub by the head and give him a head bump and then walk away from her by doing a backflip, kicking him. "Damn it," she would exclaim as she complained about the pain from the headbutt, while she laughed at her companion for having received such a blow. "Ha ha ha, you are funny, what a shame you are a threat," Satan would comment as he launched himself to attack Goku at great speed, but to his surprise, just inches from landing a punch on the Scion, she stopped, or rather seemed to be frozen, unable to move, which saved Goku because he wouldn't have been able to react in time. This would surprise Beelzebub, but before he could ask any questions, he would receive an answer and she would whisper, "Tokisaki Kurumi " The spirit of time would make her presence known, saving Goku thanks to her time control abilities. "I apologize for the delay," she would apologize, then give the Scion a shot that would cause his body to recover, thanks to bringing him back to a state before he was injured. Just in time, Goku would joke with a small smile, which would last only a moment as he would become serious and look at Beelzebub. For her part, Kurumi would shoot several times at Satan and finish with a huge reddish energy ball, which would cause a great explosion. As the curtain of smoke that had formed cleared, a very injured demon lady could be seen glaring with hatred at Tokisaki. "Why, you bitch!" she would exclaim, filled with fury, manifesting a huge aura around her that would cause changes in the weather, as if the world were coming to an end. This would alarm the heroes, who would become startled upon feeling the enormous increase in the demon's power, but without any warning and to the surprise of both, Beelzebub would appear before them and hit them with a full energy attack that would send them some distance away from there. "Are you okay?" Beelzebub would ask his companion seriously. Satan, ag. A cry of pain, yes, it just took me by surprise, don't underestimate her, she controls time but at the cost of a lot of energy, we should deal with her first, Beelzebub would seriously suggest, a thing that Satan would agree with. A few blocks away, the two heroes had been expelled by the attack, and they were recovering after barely countering the attack and reducing the damage, but despite that, they were very hurt, so Kurumi would use her power again to heal both of them. As she did this, she began to breathe heavily. "Are you okay? Don't overexert yourself using that power," Goku would say seriously to Kurumi. Cough cough. She would spit blood for overusing her power, since she had previously healed the wounded students including her sister who was the first. "And no, don't worry. I can still go on," she would respond with a small smile, but she knew that in reality she could barely stand and her vision was a bit blurry. At that moment she was frustrated for not being strong enough to keep using her abilities. Goku was aware that Kurumi could not last much longer, and in that moment, he looked around to see all the people in the street running in search of places to protect themselves because it seemed like there was a hurricane and earthquakes. All caused by the mere presence of the demon ladies who had unleashed a large part of their power. Beelzebub and Satan appeared once again, both were serious but confident. "This attack will finish both of you exclaimed the white-haired demon, who took her companion's hand, and together they created an enormous spear of energy. Goku would watch in horror the power emanating from that spear. It was evident that it was a combined attack between the two, but even so, he would take a step forward. He couldn't give up over something like that and would prepare to perform a technique, but at that moment, Kurumi would say something that his enemies wouldn't hear. The demon ladies would see how Kurumi shot at Goku, and then, to the surprise of both, they would see hundreds of Gokus. "He increased his speed," exclaimed Beelzebub, who quickly turned his gaze to Kurumi, who was kneeling on one knee. "Let's finish her off now," he would exclaim. At that moment, Goku would appear in front of both of them and launch a technique. "Ha-ah-yeah," he would shout, using all his power. Satan would push Beelzebub aside and wield the spear to counter Goku's attack, gradually gaining the upper hand. Meanwhile, the other demoness would take her opportunity and go to attack Kurumi, delivering a knee strike to her head followed by a kick that would send her back to high school, and without mercy. She would launch several energy balls that would hit the spirit and cause a great explosion. At the same time. "It's over, Son Goku," Satan would exclaim just before winning the clash of techniques. At that moment, Goku would close his eyes and a silver aura would surround him. When he opened his eyes, his black color had disappeared and they were now silver. "This is my maximum power," the Saiyan would exclaim, defeating Satan and sending him towards the sun. The silver shine on Goku would disappear and his power would decrease abysmally. Beelzebub, seeing how her companion was defeated, would take the opportunity and grab the Saiyan by the face, sending him flying with a key explosion to his face, believing it would be enough to at least take him out of the fight. Now she would head towards her main target, Kurumi. In the high school, the elder spirit was on the ground, her pupils blinking, a sign that she was on the brink of death. How did it end up like this? Goku is strong and I thought I was too, but apparently I'm not. At least she's out of danger, he would think, the last part referring to his sister. Minutes later, she would feel footsteps approaching her. Kurumi was in a state where she couldn't tell who it was, not even through ki, but she was sure that it was one of her enemies coming to deliver the final blow. Sister. The sound of Toka's voice made Kurumi do the impossible to direct her gaze towards her younger sister, while she mentally cursed that she was here. Toka, please go away, she would ask since she was in danger. Toka, you're a bad sister, how can you ask me to leave when you are in this state? She would scold her while she started to cry because of the condition Kurumi was in, ignoring the fact of her appearance and the weapons she had. Kurumi would also start to cry, but out of despair that something could happen to her dear little sister. Please Toka, go away, I don't want you to get hurt. At that moment, Beelzebub would make his presence known and would fix his gaze on the girl with purple hair and smile from ear to ear. Yatagami Toka, you have saved me the trip of going after you, he would say with a sadistic smile. That Toka would position herself in front of Kurumi and open her arms. No. I won't let you hurt my sister. Please go away. She would exclaim, with a certain determination in her gaze. Tokasaki's breathing was beginning to quicken as she struggled to understand what was happening. She tried to stop her sister with words but would start to choke on her own blood. Beelzebub, haha, relax, I'll have a little more fun with her and then I'll do it with you. Be a good girl and wait a few minutes, she said while she began to walk by Toka, but would be stopped by a hand from the purple-haired girl. If you hurt my sister, I swear I won't forgive you. He would say this while a glimmer appeared in his eyes. Beelzebub would look at Toka with anger for speaking to him that way, so he would decide to end her. Kurumi would feel how her entire world shattered into pieces when the demoness snatched Toka's heart, her little sister. Her pride had been murdered in such a way before her eyes, and in response, Tokasaki simply broke apart. A white energy would start to surround her while Kurumi began to distort. In 1 second she was there with a blank look and in the next she was there with white hair smiling like a maniac and wearing very different clothing that was entirely white. Beelzebub would realize this. Terrified by Kurumi's monstrous increase in power, she decided to finish her off with an energy sword, but at that moment Goku appeared using teleportation, taking the final blow while at the same time pushing the demon lady away. Kurumi, do not fall into the darkness, would be Goku's last words, sending his last energies to Tokasaki, who moments ago had felt Toka's ki disappear, and the black-haired girl's energy would begin to fluctuate. Upon hearing that, Kurumi would come to her senses and realize what was happening to her. She had heard about what was happening to her when she was a child, so before it happened and she became a reverse spirit, she decided to make the only move she could make thanks to Goku giving her his last energies. Thank you, Goku. I promise that I will change our fate, she would say with a small smile, and then she would launch herself seconds before the inversion was completed, and then everything would turn dark. Kurumi would slowly open her eyes and quickly look around the place where she was. Realizing she was in her room, she would relax a little, but she would start to tremble because of what she had experienced just minutes before. Kurumi-san, are you okay? The sound of Sawa's voice would bring her back to reality. Sawa-san? Tokasaki would ask, surprised to see that she was sleeping next to her best friend, and upon seeing some notebooks on her bedside table, she would realize that she had traveled back in time a few weeks, exactly to the day when Son Goku would talk to her and she would agree to go on a date with him. So she would think with hope that I have a second chance to change things and save my little sister Toka and Goku.